Welcome to the Southern Report. Thank you so much for joining me once again. It's always a privilege to have your company. And my guest and I have parachuted in safely. One of the wonderful things about doing this is the people that you meet. One of the wonderful things about doing this as well is crossing different time zones. So I've already had to make an apology in getting my time zones wrong, but timing's wrong, and it's always a delight to talk to someone who is on the west coast of America. And I'm going to bring on documentary director and other many talents, James Kitazaki, and we are going to discuss his latest piece of work that he has directed, and we will show you the trailer. James, thank you so much for joining me. I know it's late for you, and as I would give the public apology for giving the time wrong and for pushing you even earlier into the next day. So welcome from, you are in California, I am here in the UK, and thank you so much for joining me.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Not at all, James. As a fellow filmmaker, documentary maker, there is always that brotherhood and sisterhood. So I really appreciate it. And just for the record, I've got a dear friend of mine who is running as an independent candidate for governor of California, believe it or not. I will make that introduction later. We can talk about that later. James, please introduce yourself. Say, what do you do? What have you been up to? And then we'll get straight into the documentary. So thank you.
I am the lead executive producer for Morial Ministries. I handle their social media accounts. I am also the person that they go to develop film ideas that Jacob or Marco have. And I directed Why This Time Is Different. Because, if I may, my father is obviously with my surname. He's Japanese, but my mother's surname was Matza. So I am a Japanese. I like sushi and I like matza.
Love it.
You know, in the what's going on in the world today, I thought this film, it just resonated with me. The rise of anti-Semitism is an ugly thing that has not reared its head for almost 100 years, and yet we're seeing it again. So this film touches on that in a very real way.
I completely agree with you. The rise of anti-Semitism, frankly, is shocking. But yeah, I mean, with the marches that we've seen over here and around the world, is off the charts. I love that description of your heritage. Have you printed a T-shirt with Wonderful Pride yet to wear? I think that would be absolutely brilliant.
Only if I'm in Hancock Park or one of the other Jewish quarters. I wouldn't wear that shirt anywhere else in Los Angeles other than those.
James, let's just touch on this. I'm sorry if it seems like a stupid question, but how does that feel? I mean, because as you say, the whole temperature change since the 7th of October, and as other dear friends of mine have said, this is a total. Sadly, the events that happened on the 7th of October, this is a total game changer that has then, vibrated across the world so fast. Your thought?
Well, I'm one of those people that have the strange convergence to have, I knew from my father, at least, he growing up in Hawaii didn't have to, but every Japanese in California knows about Japanese internment camps.
Yes.
And then, of course, my mother's side, everyone knows about concentration camps from that side. So it is kind of surreal that I feel like I've studied World War II for most of my adult life. In fact, my high school, you were forced to watch basically documentary footage of the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. So it always affected me like this is what my family went through. Some of my family, at least. And it's crazy to wake up this late in history, 2026, to see the same thing happening again, but this time it seems like it's completely in fast forward. The media is amplifying what was once something that was talked about behind closed doors and was ridiculed as bigotry.
I hear you. I mean, I know we will get into this because we got a little trailer to show, but I know that one of the segments in the trailer is uh, is Jacob outside Auschwitz, and
Yes.
I visited Auschwitz in 1986, and there, just lay it out. You've got cabinets of human hair, shoes, piles of suitcases. Um, and I know for me that had a huge effect on my life at that point, and still does, because those memories are very vivid. And as
Mhm.
you say, when with what we're dealing with in the world, those memories come back, you know, with red beacons on as a warning. I hear you. There was a discussion. We've just celebrated Holocaust Memorial Day. There's a discussion over here in the UK, and a concern, the fact that schools are not discussing this as much as they might have done in the past. Is that going on? Is that reflected in America?
Oh, it absolutely is. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if most schools avoid it, just because it is so graphic and so shocking that uh, it would trigger people to watch it. You know, America has a very low tolerance for things that might insult or might make you feel something. Especially the young, it's very obvious. A lot of them um, can't deal with the true history of the Holocaust, and they would rather deny it and then acknowledge what's going on in Palestine as if it were similar. Which I mean, to me, that's a joke.
Mm, mm, mm. Well, we have seen since the 7th of October, the propaganda that we have been dealing with has been off the charts. And when it's revealed, when we have seen the reactions of, you know, students attending Harvard, Columbia, etc., and other universities, we then have, it's really come to the fore. Other people have been looking at this for a long time, where people like countries like Qatar have then been investing in these educational establishments, and that is also over here.
Yes.
And then let's just say it. Then when money puts people in compromising positions who are supposed to be negotiating in regard to what has been happening, what has happened, and the future of Gaza, it's, to me, it's quite incredible. But we have to do our homework, and many people do not want to do the homework. James, is that a fair comment?
It's a very fair comment. In fact, I would say most people avoid the subject, just because they don't want to get in an argument. They would rather let other people, the more vocal and radical side of society, determine what happens, rather than people who are actually being pragmatic. It's a sad state of affairs.
They would much rather leave that to the radicals, knowing that the radicals shouting and screaming, their behavior is going to affect them and their lives, because it already has. I mean, how does that work out in regard to the history, the foundation of America, your constitution, what you have gone through historically? How does that work out? Are they not looking at the roots of America and how it was founded and why?
I think there's a certain segment of the United States that would rather forget whatever roots and try to plant a new tree and
Mm,
chop the old one down. I think there's many progressives within America that are calling for that and are actually paying to do that. And I'm just going to be honest, I've talked with a lot of people, and not to be too pessimistic, but I really do believe after this administration's gone, unless God's hand is in it, there's nothing that's going to stop the opposition from continuing to erode the Constitution. The Constitution, the fact that you have things like censorship going on by the tech companies on behalf of the government, it shows you how much they disregard the Constitution and the right for freedom of speech. All of these things are being eroded daily, and it's one of the few things that we have is we can still speak freely, but those entities that control the airwaves, they don't let messages that are true really leak out much.
I couldn't agree with you more on a personal level, having been on the end of it and being censored. And when we are trying to sound the alarm, it seems that the church is deaf, politely is deaf to all of this. I'm privileged to have many friends on your side of the pond in most of the states. This is deeply concerning. I mean, I don't want to segue into it, but I will point this out. Is the biggest one, and is being the whole events around January the 6th and the manipulation of that in the press. I'm all over that, as a dear friend of mine on your side of the pond is the expert on that. And hence why I have the book here, American Gulag Chronicles, because these are all relevant. These are all relevant in regard to when you're talking about your heritage, the internment camps, the reality of this. This is very recent history, and I don't think a lot of respectfully, I don't think a lot of Americans even want to discuss that and what happened there. I want to, James, the title of the documentary, why and what are you've been filming in 5 different countries with all the complexities of that, and I fully appreciate that. Why is it titled that? What are the hints? What are the, other than in many ways, sorry if it seems a bit naive what we've just talked about, but what are the huge hints?
So the hint is, since the beginning of the church, speaking specifically of the church, they have always speculated that the time of Christ's return has been imminent. Since 70 AD, it's been the same. Over and over and over again, we've had people set dates, and they've always been wrong. But this film really explores the idea, and it's an idea that might be controversial to some, but the state of Israel as God's timepiece of showing and marking when the fig tree is ready to give fruit and when the leaves are tender and the sprout is tender. I would compare it to this. Without the horrors of the Holocaust and man's inhumanity to his fellow man, the United Nothing would never allow a state of Israel to exist. It took the suffering of the people of Israel for the rest of the world to take pity enough to give them a home. So hopefully it never repeats itself. But we as Christians, we know it will repeat itself when the Antichrist comes and declares himself to be God. And we explore one of the greatest things that happened to us while we were filming this. We went basically during the ceasefire between Gaza and Israel. So we had just a window that God just opened up for us to film this. And we're standing on the Temple Mount. I was with Jacob, and there's this guy giving a tour, and there's just a bunch of Orthodox Jews around him. It turns out it's Yehuda Glick, the head of the Temple Institute. And we went up and we asked, hey, can we get an interview? And he agreed. We exchanged information and we interviewed him. Some of the best footage of the documentary is some of the things Yehuda Glick says, because it shows you that Jews who do not believe in their own Messiah don't understand that they're building the third temple for the Antichrist. It's mind-boggling that they just totally disregard it to us, but to them, they think they're building it for the Mashiach.
I was in Israel twice last year and have been in the same room as the man, it's who it is you've just mentioned on a couple of occasions. But wow! So what other personal revelation have you had by, and I think there's a lot that you by conducting and doing this?
Well, first of all, I'm going to state that it's a miracle that this movie happened. The spiritual opposition to this movie was incredible. At one point, our travel schedules were completely botched by the airlines. We spent days and weeks trying to talk to them to get them changed. We had a couple of times when we thought weather or war would stop us. We had this beautiful miracle happen. The filming in Auschwitz, the moment we wrapped for the day, it started to hail. So it's like there was opposition, and then there were incredible doors open. At one point, I got back and I started to edit the film, and the drive that I had all of the footage on, it completely was corrupted. 15 hours of footage corrupted. I'm freaking out, and I asked, I had other work to do. I asked my father to take the drive into someone who can restore it. He gets T-boned, and he's fine. He's all right, but my car wasn't. And it's like the opposition. Jacob was in Singapore during the editing phase of this. He got deathly ill, was in Vietnam, and we almost lost him. Marco got ill right at the end of the post-production. Everyone that was part of our team, even Elon, who is our representative in Israel, he's now ill. So just one after the other, there's been so much spiritual opposition to this. So for me, as an insider looking at this, I can't help but think there's something within this movie that is a very important message to certain people who will hear truth in it.
James, I'm going to ask now before we say it. So, what are your prayer needs? What is the team's prayer needs at this time? Let's just state that, and then say where people can find this, and then we'll play the trailer and carry on.
Absolutely. For our prayer needs, like I mentioned, our dear friend and actually did a lot of the narration for us, Elon Murray, the Morial rep. He just had a heart attack this week. So your prayers would be very much coveted for his recovery, and also his family that are trying to take care of him. Obviously, he's an essential member of our team. We love him, and we have other films that we want to do, and hopefully Elon will be part of those. My prayer needs, for me, I would say it'd be very important to get this out. Right now, we're trying to recover the cost of the production so we can make some of the other films that we've developed. And the sooner we recoup some of the funds, the sooner we can start filming. And I'm very excited about some of the things that we have coming down. So just pray for the project, that people will come and decide to purchase the movie, watch it, and then share it and purchase it for other people. We just did our first run of DVDs, so hopefully those go out as well. Brilliant.
I'll ask you, we'll work this out. I'll put all the information in the description. Where can people purchase it? Where can they find it?
So if you go to Morial.org and you look in our shop, you'll see a digital download for Why Is This Time Different, and also a USB. And then give us about a week or two. We're going to ship the DVDs out to our home office in Tennessee, and you'll be able to buy it on DVD if you have to buy it on hard media. So we have many options for you.
Brilliant. I'm going to show the trailer now. Now, The trailer on YouTube, access to that?
Yes, it's definitely accessed on YouTube right now. It's on Morial YouTube TV, Morial TV YouTube, and it's
Okay.
one of our trailers. Yes.
Brilliant. Now, all these details, James, as you appreciate, are really important. So let's I'm going to play the trailer. If I have to tee it up, then we'll do that, and let's go.
And address this question.
This is not past history. This is present.
God used the Jewish people as a microcosm of the human condition to teach the rest of us that all have sinned, all fall short of the glory of God. None is righteous, no, not one.
We will be able to step and defeat the Satan. We will be able to overcome all obstacles, whether their name is Antiochus or Haman or Amalek, but we have a mission to raise the world, to lead the world into an understanding of a God who is a God who is inclusive, but we're worshiping the world and the God of the world.
The Jews will be deceived. They think they're building a temple for the Messiah. They are, first of all, building a temple for the false Messiah.
Brilliant, James. When did you start filming this?
We started filming it February 28th, 2025.
Right. And how many weeks was the production?
The actual filming was about 3 weeks. There was about 13 days between Poland and Israel, and then another week and a half between Rome and Brussels, and then another few days in California, because we do film a couple shots in California.
Right. I think I've seen one of them where Jacobs is next door to a park bench or a bench. When you were filming this, was there any? Did you end up interacting with the public, which I always find a really interesting exercise? Was there any, other than what you shared with what was happening in Israel with Hudi Glick and others? But was there any other interaction with the public that was interesting?
There interaction while we were filming, no, but there were things that we were staying in East Jerusalem, right by Golgotha, Gordon's Calvary, and the Garden Tomb.
Yep.
And I found some of the things that go on very, I don't know how to describe them other than strange. Here you have East Jerusalem, which is the Muslim quarter, and you had Orthodox coming in there during Ramadan shouting. And I was thinking, are they trying to get into a fight? But that was one of the things that was interesting. As far as some of the other things that happened, I would say there was this one spot where we filmed basically up by the Mount of Transfiguration, which is Har Haman. It's Mount Hermon. And we were at a Druzy village on the border of Israel. And we went to the border wall. You could see the wire. You could see the concrete barricade. And, we're filming Jacob right in front of there. There's the snow on top of Mount Hermon. And it was something that was very disconcerting, because when we got back and we were doing the post-production in July, that's when Syria was taken over. And the new leader of Syria was starting to persecute the Druzes, and we saw the Israelis going over that exact point, with military tanks and vehicles going right where we were filming. And it kind of boggled our minds. Why did we choose that exact spot, and why are they going over in that exact spot? But it makes sense. They're going after the Druzes.
You raise a very important issue, as we've seen Jelani, El Shara, the man, Al Qaeda man in a
Current
suit.
member of Al Qaeda with a
Yeah,
suit.
absolutely. The terrorist with a suit, and the now it's, in my own humble opinion, it's now greater Turkey with Erdogan's support there, getting rid of Assad, and also, as you quite rightly raise, and I was recently on that board of myself last November, is that with the attack on the Druze, and because of the Druze community within Israel then went in to defend them, quite rightly. We've then seen attacks on Alawites, Christians in Syria, and we're also very mindful and very concerned. I'm just saying this because there's other things to pray about with what's happening up north with the Kurds, and we have to be mindful of, I believe, of the duplicity politically and with comments that politicians are saying. I'm also very mindful, as we are speaking, with what's happening in Iran and the thousands of the Iranians that have been murdered on the street by the regime. I've been commenting on this with others as well, but 12,000, 20,000, we could be up to 30,000, 43,000, awfully even far more with what's going on. And that's another situation that we need to be unbelievably praying about, because these brave Iranians have had an absolute enough. But it's all these geopolitical moving. But I understand totally, James, what you were saying. I was up on the Lebanon border, Syrian border. We went down south and went to Kibbutz near Oz, visited the Nova Festival Memorial, which is very, very humbling to stand there and in all of those places to see what Israel is up against, right? James, no, I hear you when you're reflecting back on seeing it in the news. Was that your first visit to Israel, or have you been before?
That was my first visit to Israel, and I pray that is not my last.
No, I hear you. How many days were you there? How many days were you? I
was there 11 days, so it wasn't enough time, but it wasn't short either. It did drag on, especially those last few days of filming were brutal.
Why, being a filmmaker, I get it. I'm saying, why were they brutal?
Well, one of the things is I was wearing a lot of hats in this production. One of the hats that I had to wear was not only director, not only, coordinator, line producer, but also I was the designated driver of the van since I rented the van. So I would drive 8 or 9 hours to get to Galilee from Jerusalem, then to Nahariya, then to Akko, then the Horns of Hattin. And driving in the United States and driving in Israel are completely different animals, especially in a giant van filled with equipment.
And very much so. Very much so. Driving around Jerusalem is quite an experience, and particularly the traffic around Jerusalem at certain times is off the charts. And I understand what you're saying, because if you're used to an eight lane freeway in California, for argument's sake, and elsewhere, and I know, of course, you have traffic jams. They are notorious as well on your side of the pond. I get it. Or then in other states, it's just miles and miles and miles of no other cars on the road. Yeah, that's stressful. Also, getting out of the van, quickly setting up, grabbing your camera, then realizing you haven't got the equipment that you need, then going back to the van, picking that piece of equipment up, coming back, then attaching that to the other equipment that you need, then resetting, and then suddenly the light moves or someone's now in the way, and then you're waiting, and then you're wondering about, I've just parked the van, will it be safe? Have I paid the parking meter? I get it. James,
Yeah.
and all of that stress. And then suddenly, after doing that driving, getting out of the van, when you're organizing that and getting into directing mode and just having to step back and breathe and do that. And then making sure that you are packed up, grabbed all the equipment, not left anything behind, because you then need that for the next shot. I get it.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces and it's a lot of stress, but you know, you do it because you love the craft at the end of the day. You do it because you like telling a story, and the story here was worth all the stress.
James, what's been your other experience? What's been your previous experience in the film TV industry? What other things have you done that's led to this point?
So for most of my life, I have been working in post-production, digital intermediate back in 35 millimeter days, editorial staff, QC, project management. It was always after the camera has had rolled that I got to start working usually. And I kind of finished movies most of my life. But this was one of those things that God was stretching me. Hours and hours of QC obviously means you start to have an eye for framing and frame composition. So I got a chance to work with a really great director of photography, Robert Carrion. And between he and I, we really got some great shots, I think.
Brilliant.
But that's my experience. I mostly after the camera and after has stopped rolling and we get the files. But I would have to say, after doing production and being on site and filming, I'd much rather somebody else do the post-production and I'll just do the filming.
I get that one. I get that one. I mean, I think the other important thing is to say to everyone, because they sit down and they watch our work and they watch that for 30 minutes, an hour and a half, and they think, oh yeah, that was great, and move on. And it's not understanding the pain that you've actually gone through to produce this work. And when you have been talking about, sadly, when you said about Marco, Elon, Jacob, other things that you've come up against, this defines the spiritual war. As Ephesians 6 says, we're not fighting against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. I get it, but I understand also that pain of filmmaking. And in this case, if there's any other message for people to say why you need prayer, to pray for the next projects that you'd love to do. I mean, James, I can only imagine, I'm just to my right, I'm just looking at some drives I've got here. I can only imagine what you were going through in regard to that at that moment. To think, we've been here, we've been filming, we've been to 5 countries, and I now have a hard drive that has got 15 hours of filming on it. I don't want to keep repeating the pain. But fortunately then, praise God, that drive was restored. Yes?
Yes, we got all of the footage back by the grace of God. It was small miracles that kept this going. And it was every time the devil tried to shut a door, and God gave us a way to make it out. And I'll give him all the glory for that.
Brilliant. James, can you just repeat where again people can find this and find the work? And I will make sure, as I say, you and I just talk about that and we'll work out all the links and we'll put it in the description. If you could just say where people can find it.
Absolutely. If you go to www.morial.org and go to our shop, you'll find Why This Time Is Different in USB form and also as a digital download directly on it. And if you would like also, you can rent it for considerably less and just watch it on Vimeo. And just go to Vimeo if you have an account, type in Why This Time Is Different, we'll come right up.
Brilliant. And are people able to forward you reviews to say, I've loved this, I've got this out of it, I've been forwarding it on to friends. Is there a platform for them to do that?
There is a platform. I mean, they can take the link and give it to anyone they want. If they wanted to buy the digital download for someone, obviously they can do that and just send the link in an email. The best way, I think, is when we do have DVDs, please go to memorial.org and buy a DVD for someone. That would really help.
I hear you. I hear you. James, I just want to say it's been fantastic to sit down and talk to you on your side, on all your side of the pond. It's prompted me to say I need to speak to someone else in the state of California, and with all that California has been through over the last few years, to say the least, which is another discussion. We need to be praying for you as well, and California. Have you thought about doing a story about what Japanese in the internment of Japanese Americans during the Second World War? Have you thought about doing that?
I have, and it's funny because my father is dating someone who actually was a child in the internment camp, and I have some footage, but she was very insistent. She did not want me to publish it, so perhaps I will do something without her. But it was a fascinating thing to see her go back to Manzanar itself, and they found her name in the registry, and she's looking at who signed for her and going, "Oh, this was my grandfather who signed this." And it was like they were so, the docents and the people that worked there were so excited to see living history walk through the door, because people that have went to internment, there's not many of them left.
Well, this is what we're finding with Holocaust survivors as well.
Yes.
I think it'll make an incredible. I think it's a very, very important and incredible story. And as you've said, the parallels of where you were when you were at Auschwitz, and then reflecting on that. Before anyone says anything and chucks XSS missiles in, we're talking, and the experiences, of course, are unbelievably different, because 6 million Jews, in fact, that number may in fact be far greater.
Greater.
It's the recorded, what people can say. This is what we know of. And when you go in Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, I don't know if you had the opportunity to, right. So, and you go through the countries of Europe and how many numbers of Jewish people were then transported from there to the camps. And I advise anyone to, when they are in Israel and Jerusalem, to go to Yad Vashem and to go there, or any other Jewish museums like that, like in London, in Los Angeles, and elsewhere. Yes. James, finally, is there anything else that you would like to say? It's been a real delight to sit down and have this conversation, but is there anything else that you would like to say?
I would just like to thank you for this opportunity. We've been calling around trying to get other people that we thought would be in alignment with us as far as the message. And it's been an uphill battle to get the word out on this film. So I really appreciate you taking the time to allow me to, share this message. And I think this message is so essential for these last days that we're living in, that a lot of the church needs to wake up and see that when Christ was talking about the fig tree, he's talking about the days in which we live. When we see things happening in Iran, we see things like the Middle East, when we see the reconfederation of the Roman Empire by the EU, these are things that should make us go, we have the answers, we have the playbook. And that is the greatest evangelistic tool that we could ever use, is to show people, this is what the Word of God says, and this is what your newspaper is saying. You see the similarities?
James, anytime. It's a real honor to be able to have this conversation with you and help, because I'd love it. want to share this to help use it as a publicity tool for this this important work. And I don't know about you, James, but it feels that we're putting the shofar to our mouths and blowing that as hard as we can, and then we're finding that people just aren't listening.
Yeah.
But we are called to be watchmen on the walls, and that's our responsibility to shout and sound the alarm. James, I want to thank you for shouting and sounding the alarm through a wonderful creative craft that I also love too. Thank you for your talents and how you are using those. And I'm going to play us out. I'll say goodbye to you over the other side, but we will do this again, because to do an update and see how things are going, I'd love to do that.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Thanks, James. I'll play us out. I'll say goodbye to you over the other side.